Hi and welcome back to part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll pop a link up there and down below in the description. I recommend that you do, just so it sets the stage and your expectations for what's about to follow. So this is the opening screen in Fusion 360 before you do anything. Before I start, I just want to say I'm only going to cover the tools that I'm going to use to draw the Mitre bar. So I'm going to start by going up to this tree view on the left hand side. I'm going to right click on the top item and I'm going to choose new component. New component window opens and I'll give the component a name and I'm going to call it, originally enough, Mitre bar, and I'm going to hit enter. So now I can see over on the left hand side under this tree view that I've now got an item that represents Mitre bar. So with the Mitre bar selected, and that's what this little icon here is, I'm going to go up to the menu bar at the top of the screen and I'm going to choose create a sketch. Everything in Fusion 360 starts with a 2D sketch. As soon as you click create a sketch, it wants to know which plane you want to draw the sketch in. And I'm going to choose this vertical plane here. And as soon as I choose it, it's going to revolve and change the view so that I'm looking top down at my sketch. Imagine that you're looking down on a piece of paper. Once again, I'm going to go up to the top menu bar and I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. I'm going to put my mouse cursor over the center circle and I'm going to click once with the left mouse button and then I'm going to drag the mouse away from the center circle. And what I'm going to do now is type in the width of the bar I want. You can see on the screen that there's a blue highlight on the width section and it currently says 91mm. I obviously don't want it 91mm. The bottom of my mitre slot is 24mm, so I'm going to type in 24 and then I'm going to press the tab key on the keyboard, which is on the far left just above caps lock. And now I'm on the height section of my rectangle and I want the height of this section to be 4mm, so I'm going to type 4 on the keyboard and then I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to take my mouse, hold it close to that center circle, and I'm going to zoom in with the mouse wheel just by rolling it forwards so I can get a little bit closer. So the next thing I want to draw is the top section of my mitre bar. Now this top section needs to be in the dead center of the mitre bar and I need it to be 3mm in from each side. So instead of trying to work out where to put the mouse to get this top section to start 3mm in, I'm going to give myself some guides to use, and Fusion calls them construction lines. So I'm going to go up to the menu bar, I'm going to click on the line tool and I'm going to come over to this sketch palette and I'm going to click this icon which turns the line into a construction line, a guide line, so it won't actually be a part of the sketch itself. I'm going to put the cursor on the corner of the rectangle and it's going to snap to that for me. Then I'm going to click once with the left mouse button and I'm going to drag in, then I'm going to type 3 on the keyboard and press enter, and I've now got a mark 3mm in from the end. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So once again, choose the line item, make sure construction line is chosen, hover over the right hand corner, drag in, type 3 and press enter. Now, so I don't forget, I'm going to go back and turn off construction lines. Then I'm going to go back up to the menu, choose rectangle tool again. I'm going to put the mouse cursor on the left hand guide, click and drag. And you can see the mouse is going to snap to the right hand side. And it's also telling me it's exactly 18mm, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to press tab to move to the height box. I'm going to type in 6. And I'm going to press enter, and that's my sketch done. That is the profile of my mitre bar. So I'm going to click finish sketch, then up in the top right hand corner I'm going to click on that little that little house icon, and it's going to turn the view back to the 3D view. And if I scroll out a little bit using the mouse wheel, I can see it a bit clearer. So now what I want to do is give that profile some length, give it a body. So I'm going to put the mouse cursor on the bottom rectangle. I'm going to click, just to make sure I've got the right part in focus, and I'm going to hit the right mouse button, and then I'm going to choose Extrude from the pop-up menu. Now a little arrow appears, and I could drag that arrow either way to get it to the size I want, or once again I can just type the number in for the length I want this item to be, and I want it to be 200 mil in length, so I'm going to type 200 and I'm going to press enter. Then I'm going to scroll out so I can see the entire length. Now that's great, but I need my top bit on it as well, the high-rised bit, but my sketch has disappeared. So if I come back over to this left hand tree and click on this little arrow, which will expand this component that I've got, and I can see sketches there. If I expand sketches and I click on the eye beside sketch to turn it back on, then I can see the top portion of my sketch. So I'm going to scroll in with the mouse button again so I know that I'm choosing the right portion of the sketch. It turns blue, so I know I've got the right bit. Press the right mouse button, choose Extrude again. I'm going to type in 200. Now before I hit enter, I just need to check that Fusion's going to do the right thing, because I've now got two sections very close together. I want the operation, the creation of this second section to join the first so that they become one body, one item together. So I've got join selected. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to turn the sketch off again. And if I zoom out, I've now got my side profile. Incidentally, if your item that you're drawing doesn't appear in the middle of the screen, wherever you put the mouse to, when you zoom in or out, that's the focal point that it's going to zoom into or out from. So if your item has disappeared off the screen, then bring your mouse to the other side of the screen, zoom out, and then put your mouse cursor back on the item to zoom back in again and get it closer to the middle of the screen. Next, I want to drill the slots for the bolt holes so that my featherboard can slide to and fro a little bit. So I'm going to go up to the menu bar again, choose create new sketch, and this time I'm going to choose the top face of the Mitre bar that I've drawn. And once again, Fusion's turned it around, so I'm looking top down, down on the piece of paper. I need my slots to be dead center of my Mitre bar, and I also want them to be 20 mil in from the outside and 50 mil long, sorry. So once again, I'm going to use construction lines to make sure I get them in exactly the right place. So I'm going to turn on construction lines, and I'm going to choose the line tool from the menu bar at the top, zoom in a little bit, and then I'm going to draw a line 9 mil up from the bottom, and I'm going to draw another line, and I'm going to come in 45 mil, and I'm going to do the same at the other end. So construction lines are still on. I'm going to come up 9 mil from the bottom, and I'm going to come in 45 mil. So now I've got 2 points, one at each end, that represent the dead center of the slot I want my bolts to run in. Now I'm going to go up to the menu bar again. I'm going to click on the create drop down. I'm going to come down to the rectangle option on the menu, and I'm going to choose center rectangle. I'm going to click on that dot, drag out, and I'm going to type in 50 mil long by 6 mil high. Before I hit enter, I'm going to remember to turn off construction lines, and I'm going to do the same at the right hand side. So choose my center point rectangle, click on the dot, 50 mil by 6 mil, enter, and I'm going to click finish sketch. And again, I'm going to click on the little house so that it returns it to the 3D view that I'm used to looking at. So now I've got two rectangles that represent the slots. I'm just going to get rid of these construction lines by selecting them and pressing delete just to make it a bit cleaner. So I want this rectangle to become a slot, a hole in the top. And I'm going to use the same tool that I did before, the Extrude tool, but this time I'm going to extrude it down so that it cuts it out of the way. So I've selected the face, chosen Extrude, and I'm going to type in -10. Because remember, my body is 10 mil thick. If I hit enter, you can now see that it's cut that section out the way. I'll do the same to this end by turning the sketch back on, selecting the face, right click, extrude, -10, and it's intelligent enough to know that because I've typed in -10, I probably want to perform a cut operation, which I do, so I can click on OK, and now I've got my two slots. If you remember on the bar that I drew and showed you in the video earlier, these rectangles had rounded corners, which I'd rather they had. Just looks a little nicer. So let's put the rounded corners on. And to do that, I'm going to use something called the Fillet Tool. So up under this Modify section on the menu, the second icon in from the left is the Fillet Tool. If I click the Fillet Tool, then Fusion's now waiting for me to choose the bit of my drawing that I want the fillet to apply to. So I'm going to choose these corner lines here, and I'm just going to rotate the drawing around until I can see the other one. I'm going to press and hold Control on the keyboard, and I'm going to select the other line. Then I'll zoom out a little bit, revolve it around, choose the other two, and because I've got a 6 mil wide slot, if I choose a 3 mil radius and hit enter, then I get the lovely curved ends on it that make it look like a nice bolt slot. I'll do the same to this end, so I choose the Fillet Tool, choose the first corner, rotate around, keep the Control button down on the keyboard, 3 mil, fantastic. And last job I want to do is just to put a little round over on these ends so it makes it easier for me to get the bar in and out of the mitre slot. So again with the Fillet Tool, click and then Control select for the others, and this time I'm going to give it a 2 mil round, which is more than ample. Let's do the same on this end. Let's go back and look, and fantastic, really happy with that. So the last few things we need to do in Fusion before we can move on to our final piece of software is to save this and export it. So if we go up to the menu bar and on the menu choose the drop down on File, you're going to click on Save. I've already saved it, so to show you the same screen, I'm going to choose the Save As button. All you need to do here is to give it a name. I've called it Mitre Bar 2, as this is my second version of it. Name it whatever you'd like and hit the Save button. Once you've saved your Mitre Bar, you can now export it into the file format, the language, if you like, that our next piece of software needs it to be in. So again, go up to the File option on the menu bar and choose Export, and once again confirm it's got the name that you want, and then in the type of file click on the drop down and scroll down until you see an STL file. Choose STL file, and at this point you really need to make sure you know where it's going to save it to. Mine's going on to a drive I've got with a folder called 3D prints. So just spend some time making sure you put it in a folder that you can go to easily. And once you've chosen that, click on the export button. A little window's going to come up and tell you about the progress of the export status, and once it's done we'll be ready to move across to Ultimaker. And there we go. So Fusion's finished, it's exported the file. So we can now close that window, minimize Fusion, and we can open Ultimaker Cura. So I've loaded Ultimaker Cura, and this is the opening screen. This tells me that the software is ready to accept my file. So if I go up to my file menu and click File and then Open Files in the drop down, I can choose the file that Fusion's just created for me and click Open. Now this software is very similar in as much as it's a 3D environment, but the buttons are slightly different. In order to rotate your model and have a look at it in Ultimaker Cura, it's the right hand mouse button, and you can revolve it around and look at it any way you want to. So again, as per in Fusion, I'm only going to talk about the things that I've learned I needed to set to make mine work correctly, and they are: I have a printing temperature of 210 degrees, and I have an initial build plate temperature of 65 degrees for that first layer, and then it drops down to 60 degrees. For this print, I haven't played with anything else. I changed those two items, and then I pressed the slice button in the bottom right hand corner. By pressing that button, Ultimaker Cura will generate the file type in the language that the 3D printer needs to be able to read and make our Mitre bar. So I'm going to press the button. It's done what it needs to do, and now it's ready for me to save it to my micro SD card. So I'll do that, and I'll see you back in the workshop and we'll get to printing. Okay, so if you followed along with me so far, you've got your micro SD card back in your 3D printer with your little file on it, and we're ready to roll. So let's turn the machine on, have a look at the control interface and set it printing. So it takes the interface a couple of seconds to spring to life. And there it is, very simple, straightforward, and even for my tired old eyes, quite easy to read. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the prepare menu option, press the button in. I'm going to come down to preheat PLA option, press the button, and that'll start the bed and the head warming up to operational temperature. While that's doing that, I'm going to move the cursor up to auto home and press the button, and that's going to move the bed to the initial start position and put the head in the start position as well. So now that that's finished, I'm going to go back to the main menu. I'm going to go into the print menu option, and then right at the top of my list I can see Mitre Bar 2 V1, which was the item I chose. So I'm going to press the button, and we can see down on the display here that it's now going to warm up to those initial start settings that I chose: 210 degrees for the nozzle and 65 degrees for the print head, sorry, for the bed. And as soon as it hits those, it's going to start by laying down a line along this left hand edge here, which I believe the purpose is to make sure that the filament is flowing properly through the head, and then it'll move across and actually start printing the Mitre bar. So this is laying down that first line. And now it's starting the actual print. Now, as I'm sure you saw on the Ultimaker Cura screen, this is going to take something over 2 hours, so we'll come back to this when it nears the end. And here it is, the finished mitre bar. Instantly let the plate cool to beneath 40 degrees before you attempt to remove it. Otherwise you'll find it stuck like the proverbial. Hopefully, after all of that, you'll agree with me that drawing something and 3D printing it is really not rocket science and quite accessible and fairly straightforward and simple. If not, leave me a comment. Thanks very much for watching and see you next time. Ta-ra.